All right, my mathematicians, we have done a lot of measuring today. So what we're going to do is we are going to read our math focus points to make sure that our activities, we were working on those. And I'm going to share the data from my class about how long is their feet. And we will have a discussion and answer some questions about the data, okay? All right, so let's take a look at our math focus points. So today we are working on generating measurement data by measuring to the nearest half inch. So we saw that in that very first video, how we looked at a ruler and talked about how to measure to the nearest half inch. We are going to be describing the shape of ordered numerical data, so looking at our line plots and looking at where data is clustered. Is there any data far apart? And looking at the general shape of the data, okay? We were continuing to work on interpreting what the numbers and symbols on a line plot mean. So we're going to do that right now looking at our line plot data, okay? All right, so here is the data from my class of how long is their feet, okay? So take a moment and I want you to analyze the data on the line plot. Remember, analyze means to study, to learn from, okay? So the first question I want to ask is, what is the range? We talked about this the very first day. We talked about line plots. The range is what is the lowest and what is the highest length, okay? So what is the range of the data on this line plot? It ranges from 7 inches to 11 inches. Well, you know what I noticed? That it doesn't say inches, so it's very important when we make a line plot and the numbers, we need to know what the numbers mean. So we know it's foot length, but we measured in inches. Okay, very good. Sorry, I wanted to make sure we note that. So the range is 7 inches to 11 inches. Okay? All right, so what are the shortest and longest lengths? So I'm asking about lengths, and we just talked about the range. So the shortest length of someone's foot is 7 inches. The longest is 11 inches. So again, I was talking about the length, not about the students or the data. Okay? All right, so are there any unusual values or outliers on this line plot? Now, what is an outlier? We haven't seen this yet in the line plots we've created together. An outlier is a piece of data that's away from all other data. So do you see any outliers? Yeah, I would call this person whose foot is 11 inches an outlier because it is away from the other data. So when I made my line plot, even though no one had their feet measuring at 9.5 inches, 10 or 10.5, I still need to put those measurements there so that we can interpret the data and know that 11 inches is away from all other data. Because if I put it up here and put 9, 11, we wouldn't be able to tell, okay? So when you're creating your line plots, especially with the data that we collected today, you'll need to include, once you have the lowest measurement, and let's say you're counting by half inches, you'll have to each hop, because it's kind of like a number line, each hop has to be equal. So 7, 7.5, 8, 8.5, 9, 9.5, 10, 10.5, 11, okay? All right, so I would say that 11 inches is an outlier, okay? Is there any data that's clumped together? It's all together or concentrated together? Well, we do have our main clump of data right here from 7 inches to 9 inches since we do have an outlier. Okay. So what part of the class does the clump represent? Is it half the class, more or less the class of the class? So looking right here, is this more or less or about the half of the class? It's definitely more, isn't it? It's more than half the class because we have just one person over here. Okay. Where are there few data? Where's the fewest pieces of data? Where's the fewest number of students? You're right, 9 inches. I'm sorry, that's not right. 11 inches because only one person has 11 inches. Then 2 people have 9 inches. But the lowest amount of data or the fewest number of students had a measurement of 11 inches. Where is most of the data? Most of the data, or the most students, had a measurement of 8 inches. So what would you say is a typical foot length for a grade 3 student in our class? What is the typical length? Well, looking at this clump of data, if we didn't look at the outlier, I would say, let's see, 3, 6, 7, 8. I would say the typical length would be about 8 inches because a lot of data falls on this side and this side, but then the most is 8 inches. So I'd say the typical length is about 8 inches. Okay. So what we're going to continue to do this week is to use the measurements we took today to create line plots and to analyze the data of our 3rd grade classrooms. Okay? All right. You all have worked so hard today, and thank you so much. And I can't wait to continue this learning with you. See you next time.